Alright, guys. So, I mean, in short, right, we're all probably going to die in the next few months. I mean, Russia is going to invade Ukraine, most likely. World War III is going to break out, and we're probably not going to be here for that much longer. So, I woke up this morning thinking, hey, you know what would be a good idea? Let's make a video about something more minuscule than that and talk about Battlefield 2042 and some new controversy that has kind of just been in the mainstream gaming sphere for the past 24 to 48 hours. So sit back, relax, grab a snack. Let's just get into this, man. So Battlefield 2042, for those of you that don't know, has been an utter failure. Probably the second largest gaming failure in the past decade, and that's, pretty substantial because the only thing that I think could top it is Cyberpunk 2077, but Cyberpunk has actually came out with an update and it has fixed a lot of bugs, and that actually came out this week. But getting back to Battlefield 2042, the player base is terrible. I'll show some screenshots later on in this video. There has been new controversy that they're trying to blame another video game for their failure, their own failure in Battlefield 2042. And just overall, EA is in a pretty bad spot right now with this game. This is probably their main IP, maybe second to Apex Legends. And the fact that this IP is getting like a lower player base than a lot of other video games is pretty alarming. This is a new released game, right? So the first thing is that apparently EA has actually reportedly blamed Halo Infinite for the lack of players, right? And if you guys don't know, Halo Infinite, in terms of gameplay, much smoother than Battlefield 2042. Not that many bugs. The only issue is that Halo Infinite does have a battle pass, but you're able to play the game for free online. So, a lot of people have mixed feelings, just mixed opinions on Halo Infinite, but when you just get down to the core gameplay, the game is pretty solid. So EA is trying to blame Halo Infinite for their failure. And there's actually not a direct quote, but there are some, quotes from the chief studios officer, Laura Mealy. I hope I'm saying that right. She basically emphasized that Battlefield 2042, had some shortcomings and some failures to meet players' expectations, right? And she's attributing this to basically two things, and then there's a third one, but there's not a direct quote from her. It's more or less, I guess we can just say, just rumors going around from, Reddit and things like that, that EA and a lot of calls in terms of like stockholder calls and things like that are blaming other video games for their lack of sales with Battlefield. So she basically says that the Frostbite engine, the new engine that they created, basically sucked up 18 months of development time. There was all new tech. It was basically a new engine. And then she said they went back. The Frostbite version they were on was so old that they had to go back and update. So it was basically putting the game on a new engine. And then she basically said, the pandemic, caused some, productivity issues, right? In terms of like people being in the office versus being from home and working from home. And she basically said there was a lot of ambition for this new innovation with this new engine. And because of the pandemic, the game, is a buggy mess. But she's not saying it like that. But that's basically what she's blaming it on. But I definitely have a counter argument to this, and some of you that are, watching this video, I know you're smart, you probably think, well, the pandemic would cause more players or people to stay at home to play the game, therefore they would buy the game and there would be more concurrent players than where it's currently at. And your jaw's going to drop to the floor when you see some of the Steam chart numbers that I'm going to show in about a second. But she basically also, and this is a claim that there's not a direct quote for this one, but according to IGN, there's a report that IGN found, and Mealy claimed that the surprise launch of Halo Infinite's multiplayer was a turning point, which came a mere 4 days earlier than Battlefield 2042's release on November 19th. Compared to Halo Infinite, Battlefield 2042 wasn't as polished, so EA reportedly believes players had a more favorable view of the former. Now, if you guys don't know, Halo Infinite was delayed a full year before they even decided to release anything. And they came out with the multiplayer first, and then the campaign came out later. But, I mean, there was backlash of the game getting a whole year's worth of delays. But the difference is that Halo came out polished, whereas Battlefield 2042 had a bunch of delays, and it still did not come out as polished. So these claims that this director or this officer from EA, it's just like, it's not true, right? Like, because there's so many other counter arguments that I've already laid out here. Now, moving on, apparently they decided to retract this quote, EA. So PC Gamer actually came out with an article saying, according to Xfire's account of the meeting, EA outlined a number of reasons for Battlefield 2042's poor reception. Aside from the challenges related to working from home and during the pandemic, those reasons included bugs, performance issues, and design decisions. EA said roughly the same things to investors a couple of weeks ago. The Halo Infinite comment is new, however. Xfire doesn't quote it directly, so we don't know exactly what was said. But in the site's words, EA Chief Operating Officer, again, Laura Mealy, said that the comparisons between the games didn't go in EA's favor because Halo Infinite was a very polished title, whereas Battlefield 2042 contained bugs and wasn't as polished. If that's what was said is true, Halo Infinite was lambasted for its battle pass, but the dominant criticism was not that it was buggy, and that was a major criticism of Battlefield 2042. So basically everything that we covered here already is what we know, right? But the numbers don't lie. So the Steam charts, let's go through this, right? I'm going to show Battlefield 2042's 24-hour peak, the concurrent players about an hour ago, and then the all-time peak we really should not take into account, just because if a game gets a lot of advertisement and is hyped up, yeah, there's going to be a huge peak if the game is being advertised like crazy, especially if YouTubers are also hyping up the game prior to release, right? So playing 1 hour ago was about 3,100 players. The 24-hour peak was only 3,500. And again, these are Steam chart numbers, so yes, EA does have their own application on the PC called Origin, so these numbers aren't entirely accurate. I would even venture to say that the estimate for playing an hour ago and 24-hour peak in total is most likely in the tens of thousands, let's be honest. But even then, right, if we compare the Steam chart numbers to other older video games, it's pretty alarming. So this is Battlefield 2042 on Steam, and if we compare it to Battlefield 4 on Steam, playing 1 hour ago is 2,300 people, and 24-hour peak is also 2,300, actually 2,350 a piece, right? So that's also pretty damn alarming, right? Because there's only about a 700 player difference in these two titles. Battlefield 4 came out 5 years ago, maybe even longer than that. That's crazy to think about, that this game that's half a decade old, maybe even longer than that, honestly. It looks like this game came out on Steam about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago. So the fact that, this game is getting not that much of a difference of player base in terms of the newest title, that's crazy to me. Now, if we move on to Battlefield 5, this is where my jaw dropped to the floor personally. This game is a little bit newer than Battlefield 4, but also older than Battlefield 2042. And this game has about 8,200 players playing 1 hour ago, and the 24-hour peak is 27,000. That completely eviscerates Battlefield 2042 in every category, right? The numbers don't lie. So, there's some new updates coming out for Battlefield, but I think the Steam charts already speak for itself. Even if you want to, take proportional comparisons and say, oh, well, that's not factoring in Origin and things like that. Well, I'm comparing apples to apples here from Steam charts to Steam charts. So if you want to factor in other things here and compare it to Steam charts, it's not going to add up. You have to proportionally compare, Steam charts, and then if you were to factor in Origin on the same games, you'd have to factor them into the older games that I've just said. Battlefield 5 is the most popular Battlefield game out right now, which is crazy to me because Battlefield 2042 is the newest game. But again, some Battlefield, devs are basically tweeting out trying to have some damage control here. They came out with a new update that will update the scoreboard UI. And this is just a work in progress. So this hasn't even been integrated yet in Battlefield 2042, which is crazy, right? So not all of these features are in the new update, but there is some scoreboard. It's just not as polished as the screenshot that you're seeing because they haven't released it yet. Basically, what's going on here is that Battlefield 2042 on the release did not have a scoreboard because they wanted players to feel welcomed. Even if you were trash at the game, you wouldn't be able to see how you compare against the best person in your lobby, which I think is a very Gen Z, all-inclusive type of mentality, which I just don't support whatsoever. If you're bad at the game, you should be able to see that you're bad at the game. If you're good at the game, you should be able to see that as well. So there is a new scoreboard in the month of February that I believe did release, but it's just not as polished as this. And from what you can see here, this is what should have been in the game upon release. So again, damage control by EA, and it's just not a good look. This should have been in the game at launch. And then to top it all off, and I believe I've already mentioned this in a previous video, but it's still leaving a bad taste in everyone's mouth that pre-ordered this game, purchased this game, etc., which, mind you, is still at full price. But basically, this screenshot says that, we're looking to make updates and that Season 1 of this game, so there will be seasons, and I'm assuming some type of battle pass will be integrated, will be released in early summer, okay? Now, if we put all these pieces together, EA basically blamed Halo Infinite for the terrible launch, but in reality, EA just had a shitty game, an unpolished game, as one of the chief officers said in a call. And then to top it all off, right, they are trying to blame the pandemic, trying to blame the engine. EA had multiple delays on this game. If they're trying to blame the pandemic, they should have seen an influx in pre-orders compared to previous titles, to previous games, because everyone apparently, according to this excuse, is still at home. And then on top of all this, you have older Battlefield games that are outdoing Battlefield 2042 in terms of player base. You have a scoreboard that should have been in the game upon release, and then now you're having Season 1 of this game basically coming out in early summer. And given your track record, EA, this might also be delayed, right? Because you delayed the game for 8 more months, 6 to 8 more months, and the game still came out unpolished. So I can't imagine where this game's at. I mean, if they continuously fail or continuously try to come out with new things instead of just fixing the core gameplay in of itself, this game's not going to last another year, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope you all did enjoy this video. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe if you're new. Comment down below what games you're playing, man. I want to know what games you're playing down in the comment section below. And yeah, I'm Cryptix. Definitely not playing Battlefield 2042. And signing off.